I would like to welcome our first panelist. That is Naturally You, Tyler Murphy, MD, Lifestyle Medicine Specialist. All right, so first off, before we start with our first doctor, a lot of these questions were submitted online by people in this room and by people who had questions and submitted them via the website. How are you tonight?
Good. It's a little intimidating.
A lot of women.
I might be the only Y chromosome in here, so...
Okay, well, without further ado, we'll get started. So tonight we are talking about the impact of chemical exposure on health and wellness. On average, women apply 300 chemicals to their skin every single day from personal care products like soap, shampoo, makeup, conditioner, and other things. Is that surprising to everyone? 300, I was surprised when I read that. So, Dr. Murphy, what are the effects of these chemicals, and should we be worried about what's in our makeup?
Yes, absolutely should be worried. We sort of group chemicals in personal care products and other home care products, et cetera, into different categories. And so some of those categories include endocrine disruptors, so chemicals that affect hormone levels and alter the function of your endocrine system. Chemicals that affect your immune system, so immune modulating chemicals, they generally suppress it. Also chemicals that are irritants and allergens, chemicals that are carcinogens and mutagens, so actually change the structure of your DNA and the proteins that your body makes. These are the building blocks and sort of the instructions that your cells obey. And so significant impacts on the way your body's biochemistry works.
Okay, that's a lot of information, and I think some of it is very scary. So what would you suggest that women can do?
So we're a little challenged as consumers in 2017, and part of that is because of a fairly archaic system, an act that was passed in 1975 about chemical transparency to personal care products. And so companies are allowed to bury a lot of chemicals under terms like fragrance and natural additives, and in terms that really are fairly empty. And so it's hard for one to do due diligence and know if a product is really safe or not, if it's not even for sure known what is in that product. And so companies, advocacy groups are making this very known, and companies are starting to change their ways. In fact, even this week, I read an article from Procter & Gamble, certainly one of the largest chemical personal care and home care product companies, will be phasing out empty terms like that, and will be listing actually every chemical in the product on a go-forward basis. I think it by like 2019 or something.
Wow. So you mentioned that a lot of these chemicals can be hidden in the ingredients. I know a lot of us, when we are looking at ingredients on the back, we say, oh, that looks natural, that says green, I think that I'm safe and in the clear. That's not always the case.
Right, yeah, so unfortunately, again, under the same legislation, so the term natural and green sort of gives you this sense of false security that, it's probably good, or even plant-based. But unfortunately, you can have equally as harmful chemicals from plants, as well as, the terms natural and green really don't signify or quantify anything specifically. So in order to do one's due diligence, there are some applications that can help you out. Third-party applications like Think Dirty and the Environmental Working Groups apps. You can obtain these applications for your smart device and then barcode scan your products. And they assess a product's healthiness, if you will, and give an overall score to that, 0 to 10, 0 being not harmful at all, and 10 being, yeah, we have substantial concerns about the harm of that product. And then also break it out into those various categories that I mentioned. How much of an endocrine disruptor are there? How much of a mutagen or carcinogen are there? What is expected, the effect on the respiratory system, et cetera.
Can you mention those resources one more time?
Yeah, sure. So Environmental Working Group has an application, a phone app, and they're also a website on the computer. That's probably the one I'm most familiar with. And then Think Dirty is an alternative as well.
Okay. So the next question is, do those plant-based cleaning products really kill harmful germs and bacteria?
Right. So do healthful products, are they effective? Yeah, absolutely. And for those that use them, they can attest to that. I mean, the proof is sort of in the pudding. Sort of my own personal litmus test is if the product has, multiple ingredients in it, you can bet then the increased chance of that product having an undesirable effect on your body. And so keeping things very simple. If there's an opportunity to reduce, do you really need that product or not? Is it really doing something that essential for you? If so, is there a safer alternative? And then if not, maybe just dilution or less volume of that product can suffice. And so those are some different strategies to sort of lessen your burden of exposure to harmful chemicals.
Like I said, these are going to be good discussions, so I'll be taking notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to get very real, very intimate in this setting. So this is one of those questions that's going to do just that. Are there any natural remedy suggestions for constipation?
Oh.
This is not my question.
So I often get asked in my practice about, what sort of vitamins and supplements and other additional products one should consume. And so I try to redirect that back to focus on whole and real products. And this is kind of leaving the area of home care and personal care products, but so kind of moving to food in that question. And so, yeah, one could take a fiber supplement, but that's not really a real product. And so a much more healthful option would be just eat fiber-dense foods. So the legumes, these are beans, lentils, and peas, and generally about 15 grams of fiber in a cup of that product. We know that a healthy amount of fiber consumption is about 30 grams a day would be the ideal amount. Probably on average, an average person gets maybe 5 to 10 grams, so a fraction of what's really advised. So you could be halfway there with a cup a day of legumes. So a cup of legumes, plenty of water, you're good to go.
Good to go.
Literally.
I like that. Okay, so what about yogurt and probiotics for gut health? Do you recommend a probiotic supplement?
Again, I sort of dovetail back to my prior answer. And so what are some natural foods that are, kind of suffice for that? And so, there's, of course, the drink kombucha, so it's has fermented product in it, so it's going to have natural colonies of bacterium and yeast in them. There's also a Korean dish, kimchi, so same idea. And yogurt, obviously, is going to be fortified with, or rather naturally contain bacterial and yeast cultures as well.
Okay. Any last thoughts?
I would revisit back to the some of our discussion or question answering about some of the chemical products. My challenge or my homework assignment for you would be to obtain one of those apps that I mentioned, and if you feel so compelled, scan your 5 most commonly used products in your house. Maybe these are personal care products, in your bathroom, maybe they're household cleaners. And what's really nice about those applications is not only will you find where yours rates, but you can then very simply click to the area that says, okay, well, show me where are all the zeros that do that same thing, and find some alternative, safer products. The other observation I'll make is it's hard to measure what effect these actually play out in terms of symptoms, but I can tell you that we see cancer in people that we didn't historically used to see cancer in. We see rates of headaches, at rates that we didn't used to see. We see the presence of illnesses like autism in rates that we didn't see before. And so, there's a lot of illnesses that weren't in the vernacular of textbooks, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and 70 years ago. And so why? And if you look at the amount of new chemicals in products as just a simple line graph, and you will find that that follows a very exponential curve, after World War II. And so you have to wonder if there's a causal element in that. They're not going to be characterizable in, chemical X produces syndrome Y and, at this rate. So they're going to be softer things that you may not always interpret as, could this be related to some products that I'm using in my house? But what patients do come and tell me is they say, geez, after I did that, what I had suggested you do, and sort of canvassed my whole home and went to a much more natural line of products, or a healthful line of products, these are the things I observed. I had more energy, I had better mood, I slept better, and I feel better. And so my hope would be the same for you.
So now I'm going to go off script a little bit. I'm putting you on the spot. So I have a question of my own.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
He's like, oh no. So I have a nearly 2-year-old daughter at home, and I'm wondering if there is a correlation with all the preservatives that are in our foods now, as opposed to when I was a child in the 70s. You're supposed to say, oh my gosh, 70s. So, oh my gosh, 70s, yes. Do you think there's a correlation with cancer and other medical issues that are, so prevalent right now?
I don't see how there could not be. I mean, I think the more ludicrous conclusion would be that there wouldn't be. I think there absolutely has to be. And that's really, I spent the first part of my life and career, my training was in pharmacology and toxicology, environmental health science, and so, I've spent time at the bench top, I've spent time in the clinical trial setting, and so, I mean, I don't see how one could conclude anything other than absolutely yes. But like I said, the industry can kind of stand behind the veil of, how did that precise chemical affect your health and well-being? And those are very hard things to demonstrate. But certainly taken as a whole, and when we're exposing ourselves to that multitude of chemicals, what is very safe to say is that our biochemistry is very different than the biochemistry of your mother or my mother or our grandparents, et cetera.
Okay. Wonderful information. Please give a round of applause for Dr. Tyler Murphy.
Thanks for making it not so painful.
Thank you so much.